Good news, everyone! Talking Futurama is coming back for Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2.
Fresher than a summer ham, this podcast comes every Friday. And if you sign up at the $5 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you can hear each episode as it goes live.
That's right. Sign up today at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons for $5 to hear Talking Futurama every Friday throughout the rest of 2020 and also all the previous episodes we've done so far.
So head over to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons now, or we're going to clamp you.
Shut up and take my money.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where there's nothing scarier than an old man with a hose. I am one of your hosts, Batman's errand boy, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and this podcast is going to be totally schway.
And today's episode is the Batman Beyond episode, Blackout.
The McGinnis boy.
I work for Mr. Wayne now.
Well, yes, I suppose with your father gone, that would make you the breadwinner.
So yes, after talking about Batman, the animated series, at least 3 times on this network, if you count the movie, we're finally jumping ahead to the next series in the timeline, Batman Beyond. Batman in the fantastical year of 2039.
Or Batman of tomorrow. Or sorry, no, Batman of the future if you're in the UK and European countries.
They're not allowed to say beyond, just like nunchucks.
Apparently, I saw in one of the things that Bruce Timm was like, the word beyond doesn't mean the same in to British ears, I guess, and so they just made it far more directive, like Batman of the future.
Batman Beyond is a great title, and I will say that before I watched this show, I ate the Batman Beyond burger twice. That's a real hamburger you can buy at the Stormcrow in Vancouver. It's a great veggie burger, but so now I feel like I'm not a hypocrite anymore because I can safely eat that burger again with my Batman Beyond knowledge.
I think this is a long overdue episode, but we had to work towards it, listeners, because I'm a big Batman Beyond fan. But without the context, the precious context, like we've now done 2 regular episodes of Batman the Animated Series. We did Mask of the Phantasm. We also did Superman the Animated Series. And then we kind of actually skipped ahead in the DCAU timeline to Justice League, another patron request. So now it is time for the 4th pillar of the DCAU, Batman Beyond, and to talk about, you need to see. When we did Superman, we talked about how Batman, that team, led into Superman. And now I'm going to talk about how the changing situations at Kids WB led them from Superman into Batman Beyond. And then that led into Justice League. So it's a real interconnected web of basically a big group of artists who all make stuff together, and they just moved from series to series. And we did miss the 20th anniversary of the premiere, but you know what? This year is the 20th anniversary of the finale, so
that's right.
There. And it finally is on HBO Max, so it's available to even more people than ever. So I think that has got a lot of people watching Beyond. And the final reason I was wanting to do regular Batman Beyond is because I've always wanted to do Return of the Joker as a What a Cartoon movie, but it felt like we had to do a regular episode of it first. So look forward probably pretty soon in the poll will be Return of the Joker, I think. And
I have seen that too, and I do really like it. I saw that before I saw any Batman Beyond in my life, which was for this recording.
It's Return of the Joker is kind of... It makes the other regular episodes seem lesser, for sure, because it's a whole nother level of animation. Plus, it pulls the lever on the Joker machine that they resisted doing the entire show. And they actually, it made Return the Joker have much more impact because through the show, they made this decision to use sparingly original Batman villains in the future. They tried to create a lot more of their own villains.
I'm looking forward to watching that again, and I'll talk about it on that podcast. But the only time I've seen this movie, I watched it on an iPod Classic. I rented it from the iTunes store to watch on a train ride on a little 2-inch by 2-inch screen. So yes,
and probably from a DVD master of it too. So.
Yeah, can't. I mean, it's going to be an upgrade next time I watch it.
On HBO Max, you'll be seeing it from an HD remaster. Yeah, I did watch this a lot in the my late years as a Kids WB viewer, but it did premiere when I was 17, and I don't think I really liked watching it more or less because it's like, oh, it's a teen boy just like me. But I did like the show just because it was the continuation of more of this world of the animated universe. But of course, it came right as Pokemon takes over the network, and I think it was one of the last things I regularly watched on Kids WB. And once the series of this ended, that was pretty much the end of me as a Kids WB viewer as well.
As for me, this show felt like a betrayal because it came just 1 year after the new Batman Adventures ended, which was the final installment of the Batman the Animated Series family when they kept retitling the show. And that was when the drastic character design changes came about, where I was definitely against that in the beginning. Going back to them now, I'm like, oh no, they look cool. And this is just a way for them to deal with a much lower budget by streamlining the characters. This show takes that even further, where you don't even see a chin on Terry. He's just a pure black shape on the screen.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's it takes that streamlining / budget consciousness even farther.
By that I mean you don't see the cowl does not cut out his chin area. He's just completely covered in a wetsuit of Batman.
Yeah, and he's just black with gray outline, and it's he's it is a more extreme version of the Batman slimming down thing. Yeah.
And my opinion at the time was, why don't you just make more Batman the Animated Series? And I still feel like that today. Every time Bruce Timm does something, I'm like, just make that series again. Make a bunch of little noir movies. It was that easy. You keep messing it up. And I know this was a good series, but something about it, that feeling of betrayal, kept me away from it. But watching it now, I'm like, oh yeah, it's all the same people, and it's a lot of the same writers, and it has that same level of quality. There are a few things about this I don't like that are really a hallmark of the time. It feels really dated in a way that Batman the Animated Series did not, because it was trying to be dated in a way that nothing on TV was, with its very 40s aesthetic. But yeah, this it does hold up, and I think I'm going to keep watching it because I do like what I saw so far.
I as an adult now, I can identify even more the awesome cyberpunk influences of it with them directly. If you saw in the first episode, Bob, he literally gets on Tetsuo's motorcycle.
The one thing, and maybe you can tell me if they expand on this, is I think the pitch for this was just sort of a way to make more Batman, right? And you'll get into that, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's I mean, the creation of the show could be summed up as executive meddling fixed as best as possible.
Okay, I got a sense of that because outside of, how the characters have aged and their relationships with each other, nothing about this really feels like it's in the future. If you take away the hover bikes and the hover hockey and the hover fire trucks, these could all just be stories in the quote-unquote present. I feel like nothing about the world of the future is really explored, at least in the 3 episodes I watched. Maybe I'm expecting too much, but I expected much more about this is what the world is like in 2039.
Well, especially because on Batman the Animated Series, even in the most original episodes, I'm not even talking about the ones they updated for Superman, if a robot showed up, it wasn't seen as well, yeah, it's just like a Terminator. Batman fought a Terminator in 3 different episodes.
That's true.
And so sci-fi elements could just come in and they would be questioned to a degree, but it would not be well, this is impossible. So yeah, flying cars of the cyberpunk future of Batman Beyond, not so impossible. And one of the funnier things on hearing the commentaries, the few DVD commentaries they did for it, was them just looking at well, that cell phone's pretty big, huh? Well, that's a big microchip. We were wrong about that. But
I see. I mean, people are using discs in the future in the 19 years from today or 18 years from today.
Yes, yeah, you're right, because it was 20 years after 2019, so yes, oh god. Also the thing that I am much more attracted to it now is that I can really recognize the elements of Spider-Man in here. This, the big selling point for Tim and his team was that oh yeah, we could tell these Spider-Man kind of stories we couldn't tell with Bruce, because we've got this teen boy who is trying to balance a secret identity and schoolwork and all of this stuff. And like it's to the point that in several episodes they redraw classic Spider-Man scenes. That comic book cover behind there, the classic one is Amazing 33 where he's under all that stuff. They draw that shot for shot in like the 10th episode of the show.
I thought of Spider-Man 2 the first time Terry did a quip when he like punched a guy, because if you watch the original series, Kevin Conroy as Batman doesn't really act that much. He'll say one thing like "it's over" and that's it. He just basically does a lot of grunting. There's not a lot of quipping involved when he's knocking people over or stringing them up.
It's the end of the line for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I this time watching it, Spider-Man in his comics and his cartoons, constant internal monologue to himself, like, but is it really the Green Goblin who's up to this? And am I going to even make it in time for Mary Jane? Terry doesn't do that, but he does talk to Bruce all the time, and it effectively is the same kind of internal monologue. He's just saying it to Bruce Wayne.
Oh, I thought of, speaking of Bruce Wayne, the one other thing that put me off of the series was I thought what happened to Bruce Wayne was really depressing.
Oh, yeah?
And that he's just a sad old man living alone. He never found love. He's just as tortured. But it is the logical conclusion of Batman. But I don't think I was ready to face that. I was like, no, Batman's cool.
They make a point of showing that Terry is a much more balanced individual and less damaged than poor old Bruce Wayne is. But yeah, so that let's talk about how it came to be the Batman Beyond. All right, so it is late 1997, and things are going really good at the Batman factory. Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Alan Burnett, and many others, they are wrapping up a 52-episode order that we talked about in the Superman podcast, which was they made 28 episodes of Superman and 24 episodes of new Batman adventures, and they were aired together. And this new Batman had that streamlined, cheaper, faster look, and it allowed them to like renovate their sandbox. And they're all thinking, man, this is going great. Can't wait for more Superman and Batman. We are going to have a good time. And then enters into the picture one of the most influential television executives for things that we enjoy, Jamie Kellner.
Boo.
So
hated on message boards in the late 90s.
He's a bad man. But he also, I don't know, I do see him as like, oh, you were an executive when this thing happened, and I like that. But yes, Jamie Kellner, quick bio if you don't know him or if you haven't heard the ones where he covered him before. He came up through the ranks at Viacom in the 1970s, before it was the Viacom that, owns everything. Then he was a picked guy by Fox executives Rupert Murdoch and Barry Diller. They groomed him to be their top dude over their new fourth network, the Fox network. And he would oversee hits like The Simpsons, 90210, Married with Children, all that stuff. And his crowning achievement was getting Major League Baseball onto Fox, which did make it seem much more like a real network. And as we talked about in the Superman one, thanks to bad changes in American law, a company like Warner Brothers could also own its own network. And so in 1994, they hire a bunch of the Fox TV folks with Jamie Kellner in the lead as the guys who are going to run Kids WB.
You know what? Probably no friend of Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein either.
No way. No. And this story of the creation of Batman Begins has a lot of mirroring of what happened with Bill and Josh, except Mission Hill got off way worse than Batman Beyond did. So Kids WB originally for the first couple seasons was really Jean McCurdy's fiefdom, because she came over from Fox Kids and pretty much just repeated that programming from Fox Kids. And that included, our shows we love like Freakazoid and a bunch of other Spielberg joints. But as we're entering the end of 1997, those hits are starting to dry up, and Kellner, who's above her, is feeling that these aren't getting the ratings that they want, specifically with younger people. They want younger viewers, not just teens or adults watching shows like Superman and Batman. And of course, this would lead to things very quickly like the governmentally enforced hysteria TV show or the hated by the creators Pinky and the Brain and Elmira show.
Oh yeah, he's most known by cartoon fans for retooling Pinky and the Brain
and chasing off all of those guys to One Saturday Morning and whatnot, and losing Paul Rugg and killing Freakazoid like that. We'll talk about that. So as Bruce Timm tells the story in the last couple of years, he's been a lot more open about this and basically just saying Jamie Kellner's name. And if you find articles with him in like 2005 or whatever, he's like, an executive said this, but he's much more direct about Jamie Kellner in the story.
I guess
now.
He can't hurt his career anymore.
He's pretty much out of the world now. But so Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Alan Burnett, and Glenn Murakami, who rose up the ranks as art director on the then most recent season of Batman episodes because, Radomski's gone. So Murakami moves up the ranks, and his influence is the even more anime-y influence. And he's really good at that.
Was he affiliated with the Ninja Turtles at all?
That I know he goes on to do the Teen Titans show, the anime-looking Teen Titans show. I don't know if his turtle credentials, and he did Ben 10 as well. A lot of ex-Batman guys went to Ben 10, but so those guys go to Kellner's office with the belief that this is going to be them discussing plans for the next season of the new Batman Adventures and also the next set of Superman episodes. They are floored when Jamie Kellner starts to tell them, they're like, well, these ratings aren't what we want them to be. I think Batman, is kind of getting older, guys. We need more younger people. And this isn't appealing to it. I don't want to make more episodes of this. And Tim instantly is like heartbroken, like my show just got canceled in this one sentence.
That was the tragedy of Kids WB, in that people were watching the shows, but the wrong people for their demographic were watching the shows. They couldn't sell toys to the college kids watching it or the teenagers watching it.
In the years since, they found a way to sell those toys to us, but back then they didn't know how to sell them to.
No adult would buy a toy. Get out of here.
These are not respectable adults. But and Kellner's reasoning for this is because he is a big believer in the power of sexy teen dramas and just teen excitement in general. Spring 1997 was when he, on the primetime side, debuted Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I think Nikki Cox was one of the biggest drivers of ratings they had on the WB. Plus, in the fall of 1998, he already is planning this huge swath of teen shows that will include Dawson's Creek, Felicity, and Charmed. So Kellner is very much into transforming Kids WB the same as the WB. I think, too, it's that Jean McCurdy was losing power. Like, I think Kellner was messing around more in her domain. And, like, he was, I think he was viewing it as her stuff isn't making the same ratings that it should be, so I'm going to interfere and get some more teen stuff in here.
You mentioned Nikki Cox, and to bring her up again, Jamie Kellner basically just remade Married with Children on WB with Unhappily Ever After. I just realized that because I didn't know he was associated with that era of Fox.
That's correct. Yeah, he just, one of the first WB shows was like, they hired one of the creators, but they were like, just make more of this.
What if Al Bundy had a puppet friend?
And
Kelly was even hotter.
I know, like she is even more of a bombshell than the beautiful Christina Applegate.
So much obnoxious hooting and hollering from the Fox audience. Sorry, the WB audience.
And Nikki Cox kept that. Once that show ended, then they're just like, well, let's have the Nikki Cox show. And then she's just the star of it and wearing skimpy dresses in that too. So Kellner pitched to Bruce Timm and his team a vision. What about a cool Bruce Wayne driving around in fast cars, having exciting adventures, trying to balance it with high school life, just like the Buffy show? Wouldn't that be cool? And Tim and his pals could not believe it. They were just like, well, no, wait, that would completely throw out like 100 episodes of history to this point. We have a lot of fans based on that. What if instead we did something like a younger guy takes over Batman from Bruce Wayne? And then he said that Jamie Kellner was like, yeah, like how a samurai passes along his sword to a younger student. And Bruce Timm goes like, yeah, like that. And so to their surprise, Kellner didn't say, okay, bring me a pitch later for that. He said, that is greenlit right now, and you start on it right now.
God.
And he's like, I want this for fall 98. Less than a year. Ultimately, they'd have to settle for January 99. But Tim could not believe it. He was like, this shouldn't be okay this soon. Now I have to stop making the Batman that I actually really like. I have to make this stupid teen show. What the hell am I going to do? And then he credits Glenn Murakami for convincing him that it was actually a really good idea, because he saw it as a chance to do a cyberpunk future story, use all that Akira stuff they love, and do Spider-Man style stories. This iconic template. If you're doing a story about a teen superhero, you're either following the Spider-Man template or you're intentionally going against it. But it's like that is the template for a superhero in high school, at least from an American viewpoint, I'll say. So that's when Tim and Burnett and Dini, they're starting to get into it. They're like, oh, you know what? Actually, old Bruce Wayne training a young guy in the future, we're interested in that now. Like, they actually start getting hooked on it. But they still have a matter of months to pull a finished show together from scratch that they didn't make a show Bible for. I believe they said for the first season they didn't have a show Bible. Maybe they retroactively made it, but they didn't start with one.
I get a sense of that. Like I said earlier, I don't get a sense of what this world is supposed to be. It just basically about the characters. It doesn't need to be in the future outside of Bruce Wayne being old.
And there's also there's no like uniformity to some of the characters, because they were just calling in every character designer they could to be like the villain that Terry fights in the first episode is this kind of like steampunky looking dude, like aristocracy guy. And that came from their earlier ideas that they were going to be more about like the class divide and be like, oh, the nouveau riche and all this stuff. But then they kind of went back on that a little bit. And they also had, I think that guy was designed by Mike Mignola, the Hellboy creator. And I can see a lot of that in that guy. So they are having to start from scratch on this. They also mentioned, like, unlike all their other shows that were set in the current day, they couldn't even reuse like design elements from it. They're just like, shit, we just have to completely redesign Gotham. And on top of that, they are doing this while in post-production or the end of shipping off their last bit of episodes of Batman and Superman.
And I'm thinking also for the animated series Batman, they could rely on, adapting older stories or older ideas. This is all new villains, all new ideas in this. It's just there can't be any borrowing.
Yeah, that was another one Murakami pointed out. He's like, we had to just make up all these new stories. There wasn't with new characters and define them. Like, they couldn't count on, a classic comic book like, say, The Laughing Fish, and then adapting that and then changing it. But you can start from a foundation of like, pick from one of a million great Batman comics from the last like 50 years before the series started. Now they're just like, okay, what's Batman in the future? Let's figure it out. And Murakami is like, I don't know how we even did it. Like, it seems impossible that they pulled it off. So what they envision is a world 40 years in the future from 1999. The class divide is stark. Like, they originally imagined like Terry's on the wrong side of the tracks. He's like literally lower in society because he lives like lower in the stratified like buildings of Gotham, because they wanted like, oh yeah, Bruce has faced a bunch of tragedy, but they accepted like, yeah, he's a rich guy. He's always been rich. He won't know the hardscrabble life that Terry McGinnis has known. And so they imagine this, hot-headed troubled teen who needs to find some direction. Then they decide like, oh yeah, Bruce Wayne, he's going to be a grizzled old man, sad and lonely, got no Alfred. He's kind of become Alfred in a way. But a very important thing for Tim when they were considering, this new protagonist and this huge new supporting cast is that he wanted to make it clear that Bruce is not the main character. And that also meant not relying heavily on the classic rogues or too many of the old characters. Like, they get rid of Robins. There is Batgirl in this, but she's grown up to be Commissioner Gordon. She's introduced in the episode we're doing. But he's like, yeah, we have to move away from that. And he said internally that was even a problem because the pitches he was getting for stories were like, they were so centered on Bruce. It's like, well, Bruce goes through this and then Terry helps him and he has to go like, this is Terry's show. Stop doing this.
I'd rather hear more about this old man.
And so he said it also made it even harder because it's like they couldn't get freelancers to just submit a full script and then they'd edit. He had to break full stories to be like, all right, here's a story, beat that makes Terry the main character. Now you write it. So it was more creative work for Tim and Dini and Burnett as well. And also they knew already ahead of time that they were uphill with all of their fans. Like they already, when Superman launched, all their fans were like, we want more Batman.
I was one of those people.
And then when they make new Batman, all their fans are like, this doesn't look like old Batman. And so now, even more so, they're like, we're stopping those shows that you've come to like, and it's just future Batman, and the Batman you love is old and crippled. But yeah, it was very important for them that Terry be the main character in his own stories. There's many episodes that I was like, this is a Bruce story. You know, you guys maybe tried, but this is about Bruce. But key writers on top of Paul Dini and Alan Burnett were a lot of DCAU veterans like Stan Berkowitz, Robert Goodman, Hilary J. Bader, and Rich Fogel. Rich Fogel had come back to the fold after heading out to, I think, Disney for a bit.
Yeah, seeing who wrote this one, I looked at his credits, and there are so many other episodes of Batman he wrote. So they got a good group of writers for this show.
Yeah, that's why I think really they were even able to pull this off, is because the train was just moving. You know, they were still building the tracks as the train was moving, but they didn't have to try to start the train. It was just like, okay, we have a lot of our favorite writers, but like Stan Berkowitz had left and they had to like get him to come back. Like he was gonna leave for live action. They're like, please, you can help us with this. And they peg him as one of the guys who really understood Terry as a character. Meanwhile, on the art side, that's working at a feverish place. You've got Glenn Murakami as the like new head of art. He's the top art guy on it, and a lot of the lead directors were a bunch of Batman the Animated Series vets like Dan Reba, Kurt Gaeta, and Butch Lukic. Plus, star character designer James Tucker moved up to the director level. Real opportunity for him. You know, he's there back then, especially, and still now. There's African Americans are underrepresented in the world of animation, and so this was a big deal for James Tucker. And he also is like one of the best directors DC has had. Like he, I think, was the lead artistic force on the Batman Brave and the Bold series, which looks so good. That's like James Tucker's. He's good at big beefy dudes, and that's it like in overdrive to comical proportions. Plus, they had two overseas directors, Kyung Wong Lim and Yukio Suzuki. And I think it was a situation similar to starting with Superman. They started to let the overseas teams direct a few episodes fully, and like, you can even board this. Like, they'd send them over the script and character designs and let them, they developed a level of trust to let them board and do it the whole thing. So I think that's the Lim and Suzuki episodes.
And these are people they've worked with before, right?
Yes, yeah, they had worked on all of the previous ones. Like Yukio Suzuki, he also was like, I believe, the series animation director overseas, and he had previously worked at Spectrum. Like, he's one of the animation directors on Mask of the Phantasm.
Awesome.
Suzuki. And I would like to put a special spotlight on the late Darwin Cook, who he's one of the greatest comic book artists who ever lived, in my opinion. Like, all of his comic work is amazing, but he actually got his start in the world of DC as a storyboarder on New Batman Adventures.
Oh, wow. I am familiar with him because he at least drew the only superhero comic book I ever really read, and that was his New Frontier?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just love how it looks.
It's great. It is so great. And you can also see in his art style, like, what attracted him to the Batman style, too.
I think that's what attracted me to the comic book. Just like, this looks just like Batman the Animated Series. I have to read this.
That has giant woman vibes. Where I like that he chose to draw Wonder Woman taller than Superman. Like, that's what I really like. Most people don't do that. But yeah, Darwin Cook, he was a Toronto-based artist who loved comic books and wanted to make comics. But after he did like his first assignment at DC in the late 80s for $35 a page, he's like, this pays like shit. I'm not doing this. And
that might be a good rate today, actually.
The exact same 35. So he very smartly for his pocketbook got into advertising and actually worked his way up in the advertising world, and also was a very early adopter of doing art on computers using Adobe Premiere. Like, he understood Adobe Premiere before lots of people in the animation world did. But Cook, despite his success, he was missing, actually working on stuff he loved. And that's when in Comic Shop News, he sees an ad that Bruce Timm placed in there for like, hey, we want you as a storyboarder for, it was like open auditions to be a storyboarder on the new Batman show. He sent in his storyboards and they were so good, Tim like called him the next like as soon as he could and be like, start working for us, please. So he's working out of Toronto. Eventually they convince him to move to LA to work full-time on it, and he's like, ugh, I hate living in LA, but I guess that's how I got to do it. He storyboards on Superman and New Batman, some of their best stuff. He boarded all of the stuff on Darkseid's planet in the Superman finale. That's one of my favorites, other than the fight. The big fight is a Bruce Timm thing. So he's already in the Batman group. He's now being asked to help with a lot of the design elements on Batman Beyond, and they also task him with being the director and lead animator and editor on the opening. The opening is all him. And the funniest thing is that like he edited it on his home Mac because the Warner did not have a good enough machine or Adobe Premiere to do it.
No offense to the late Darwin Cook, but I hate this opening. You could tell that somebody edited on their Mac. He did
his best, Bob.
It is. I mean, he should have been giving more resources, but this is one of the most like reeking of the 90s things of this show is just like hope, apathy, fear, courage, like shaking on the screen. And I mean, I guess it's impressive if one guy did it, but boy, it's not the classy opening of Batman the Animated Series.
I agree, but I do
not
think,
to speak ill of the dead. I just feel like, ooh, I got to skip this intro.
As an artistic accomplishment, I do like his
for sure.
intro, and also there's stuff in it where it's like, oh, you think that's CG, or some people thought it was CG, but it was like, no, we had a maquette and then we filmed it.
Like the Bruce head.
The Bruce head is just a plastic maquette, yeah. Or clay. What? I don't know what they made it with, but yeah, also Cook, like the animation of him like running and stuff, or the bats and all that was Cook too. Like he pulled it off, which again, by himself, pretty impressive. So after Batman Beyond, Cook would work some in animation. He worked on the Men in Black cartoon series after, but then he went back into comic book work that would pay very much better for him in the new millennium. And he'd work on a ton of great comic books. Like Bob mentioned New Frontier. That is probably his masterpiece. I would also suggest, especially Bob, you would love this, his Slam Bradley comics / his Catwoman reboot comics. They are classic noir, drawn perfectly. Like, they're amazing. Plus, most people would think trying to do New Spirit comics in the style of Will Eisner would be an invitation to failure. He actually pulled it off. And all those before Watchmen comics, I don't like them for existing, but he did the best one. And it still is a doomed enterprise. But yeah, Darwin Cook, so great. And he actually would touch on Batman Beyond one last time because in 2014, for Batman's 75th anniversary, he actually directed and animated a brand new short of Batman Beyond. And it was really interesting. You guys should look it up.
Yeah, I saw that in the list of episodes. It was just Darwin Cook's Batman Beyond. And I was like, what is that?
Yeah, it's like a 3-minute thing where basically that Terminator robot I just talked about who looked like Batman, he shows back up in the future and Terry has to fight him in the Batcave. And then he has to fight all of these other Batmen who look like all of the eras of Batman. And it's, it's a real anniversary thing. It was really cool. And then sadly, Darwin Cook very unexpectedly from apparently very aggressive form of cancer, passed away at the age of 53 in 2016. So R.I.P. Darwin Cook. And he was seriously a major impact on this show. So the cast of the series, stellar as always, all directed by Andrea Romano, like the queen of voice direction. And the group of veterans and new folks, anchored by Kevin Conroy still. As he recalled, at first he was like, well, you're not going to be Batman anymore. And he's like, what? But he really welcomed the challenge of playing an elderly Bruce who has to admit he has limitations and help someone instead of being the star, and also move on with his life. Conroy really liked the challenge as an actor. If you see a lot of Conroy interviews, he's very, very into talking about the craft of acting and the work involved. He's very proud of his work, and he should be. He's an amazing actor.
He's my Batman and the best Batman.
He is the best Batman. Yeah. So he's fine with being older Bruce. He's looking forward to it. Meanwhile, they're having issues finding their Terry McGinnis, the young hot-headed boy who will take over. And Bruce Timm, his wife, was a viewer of the TGIF series Boy Meets World.
When I saw who played Terry, I was like, that's one of the Boy Meets Worlds. Then it was the older brother, right?
Yes, I always get him. Well, because he's playing Hunter Storm or Hunter Strong, that kid, the bad boy friend of the main character, not the older brother. So I kept thinking oh yeah, it's that kid, right? It's no, it's the Will Friedle plays the dorky older brother of Boy Meets World.
The joke about him is he's stupid, right?
Yeah, he is the dumb idiot brother of the show. Yeah.
Also, Jason Marsden, Max Goof, came from this show as well.
Yeah, they're both kind of the same guy. Will Friedle and Jason Marsden are kind of the same person.
I get them confused.
They must always go for the same roles. I mean, if James Marsden didn't read for Terry McGinnis, I would be shocked.
That Will Friedle's got a good head of hair on him, I'll say that.
Yeah, to this day. And also you can see he is an actual real fan. He is a nerd. I've seen him host roundtables and it's oh, you're an actual comic book nerd who really appreciated being Batman. And Tim, at his wife's suggestion, got him in, and he said he nailed the audition. This wasn't just my wife said I hired you, whatever, I hired you. He's no, you nailed the audition. And Friedle said yeah, I did what Conroy did. I played Terry and Batman differently, in my audition. I think they really got into that. And Friedle said too that he really loved working with Conroy, that they actually had great chemistry, and that Conroy loved working with him too, and they kind of repeated their characters' arcs of him being it was his first voice acting job.
Okay.
And so he was training him in how to be a voice actor. And since then, Friedle has gone on to have many other iconic roles, he's Ron something. Ron Stoppable and Kim Possible.
That's right.
And
a much goofier role.
And he loves nachos, that guy. And also he played Lion-O in the 2011 Thundercats, and he was Blue Beetle in the Batman Brave and the Bold episode that we did. That's a lot of bees. And so yeah, and Andrea also really wanted to still have everybody act together as much as they could. That was very important for her. The rest of the cast was filled out with regulars voice acting superstar Lauren Tom. 1999 was the year of Tom.
If you had an Asian woman on your show, she was your lady.
And the only Asian woman. Like she could be every Asian country ethnicity they needed.
She could play an Asian woman and her mother, as she done in Futurama and King of the Hill.
Man, yeah. Well, what are you going to do? Hire a second Asian woman?
They simply don't exist.
Is there an Asian woman over 40 acting in Hollywood? I've never heard of that.
Nope.
No, but yeah, she does play Dana, the basically Mary Jane Watson to Terry's Peter Parker. Introduced in season 2 is Cree Summers' character, Max, who is this like buddy confidant, like a gal Friday for Terry. They don't really have any romantic tension, the characters, but I bet they had that in their back pocket. They're like, we get more episodes, maybe we have a love triangle.
It's a very ethnically diverse Batman series with there's an interracial relationship at the center of this, and the first Irish Batman, Terry McGinnis.
Can an Irish and an Asian really get along?
I've never seen it.
And you've got Terry Garr as his mother Mary. She's great. Stockard Channing is Commissioner Gordon, and so many standout guests, too many to name, but folks like Stacy Keach, Ice-T, William H. Macy, George Takei, George Lazenby. It's really great. They have him play a James Bond type, and it's really funny. And also they talk on one of the things I watched, they cast Stephen Baldwin and William H. Macy to be two henchmen. And originally they just Tim was like, yeah, William H. Macy, he's the wormy henchman. Stephen Baldwin, he's the tough henchman. And Andrea Romano's like, let's switch him. Let's see. And William H. Macy, for the first time in his career, got to play the heavy. And it was so great.
I just rewatched Fargo over Christmas, and he's amazing in that, by the way.
Yes,
that's a very boring statement to make in the year 2021, but please watch it. It's great.
I just rewatched it too. There was a scene everybody remembers the great, scraping the ice off scene he does. That's incredible. But there's another one right before that when he enters the room to pitch his parking lot to his father-in-law. He goes take a seat, and he's told to take a seat, and he looks around. There actually is no place for him to really comfortably sit. So you just see William H. Macy acting out like, okay, I guess I'll just sit on this armrest here.
We're not a bank, Jerry.
What are you saying, Jerry? We prefer to do it this way. Okay. And the music for the show was different, industrial rock, fitting for the time.
Okay, that's my issue with the series, because the music is fine. It fits fitting, but when there's an action sequence, it sounds like I just started up a game of Doom. It's like, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is not necessary. But I know who they're trying to appeal to in 1999, and it just sticks out to me.
It is very much Trent Reznor's Quake soundtrack.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, what Bruce Timm wasn't sure of is if Shirley Walker and her team of composers who'd been working with them up to this point could do industrial. They weren't sure. And Shirley Walker was game for it. And she's like, okay, me and my composers, we're going to write some demos for you, and we'll submit them to you blind so you won't know who wrote what. And he was so impressed by them. Tim was like, holy crap, that actually one of them submitted by Christopher Carter. He was like, this is so good, we're just going to rework it slightly and make it the opening.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, and I know it is kind of dated, but very dated. But that there's some appeal of that to me, honestly. An overseas animation handled by Coco and Dong Yang, the two Seoul-based studios, well-versed in DCAU to this point, full of TMS vets, and they were both chosen studios. I think TMS owned part or all of both of them, and so they were used to being outsourced for this, and that includes a lot of Spectrum folks like Suzuki, who I talked about earlier. And I think it too is this came at the time TMS was fully like, we are priced out of your TV range. You can afford us for better than TV, but also they were getting busy with Cyber 6 at the time, actually.
Oh, would they do the movie?
They did do the film.
Okay.
Yes,
Was the
TMS.
film, I can't recall, was it digital or not?
It is, yes, yeah. TMS was getting into digital.
Okay.
Cyber 6 was digital, and they used all the same components for the Return of the Joker.
I couldn't tell on my tiny iPod screen.
There's a funny bit on the commentary for it where Bruce Timm is like, TMS said they did it all, but I see a couple scenes here that look like Coco to me, and they sent them to them.
This reeks of Coco.
But I think the animation's pretty good for the era with occasional flourishes. I also did want to do this episode Blackout because I think it's the best animated one they did.
It looks good. You can see that the stylization, like with the last Batman series, is a result of lower budgets. They're not getting the Fox budgets anymore.
Yeah. But I mean, there's still like the color palette is really good.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a result of like, we want the animation to look good, so let's make these designs as simple as possible, which is why Terry is just a shape with very little definition. And I like it. It's not a bad thing. It's like a very daring choice. Like his ears are crazy.
Oh man, the ears get bigger every Batman cartoon. Like that's why when we did Justice League, Batman's ears got way taller because as a reaction to how tall Terry's ears were in this. So, the series has a big primetime debut on January 10th, 1999, the same night as the premiere of Viva Ned Flanders.
Oh boy, that's where I was.
Yeah, I didn't watch it until it premiered that Sunday, but then it was Saturday mornings the entire time. So, the next 2 Saturdays were the part 1 and 2 of Rebirth, and then on the 30th was this episode of Batman Beyond. And so it was, in their Saturday morning lineup, doing good, and reruns were airing in the afternoon programming. As director James Tucker would recall in 2018, in the first season, they got away with a lot of stuff. Like that they said because of the setup of it and probably for how fast they were moving, they got away with being way more violent than they were even in Batman New Adventures.
I was surprised by some things I saw in these first 3 episodes, for sure.
Yeah, though apparently the beating that Bruce Wayne takes at the very start of the series, that actually is cut down. They had a harsher beating. Or like in this episode, he throws up. Like Terry gets to throw up.
And then the throw up is just the villain who runs away.
Yes, yeah. And so they got away with it being more violent and dark than previous shows. Like there's an episode of later in season 1 where a villain is trying to drive Bruce Wayne insane by pretending to be a voice in his head that is talking him into suicide.
Oh my God.
Like that's how dark they said. And they said it, Tucker thinks it was in part thanks to how fast they were having to produce the first season, that they had far fewer censor notes than usual, and they had far fewer approvals. That wouldn't be the case with season 2.
Aww.
Well, as you can tell from the timeline, Batman Beyond debuts January 1999. 3 months later, there's a little thing called Columbine.
Oh.
And so
I thought it was going to be a little thing called Pokemon.
No, it's
Did Kids WB get that in the fall of 99?
It's the trickle started in early 99, but I believe September 99 was when it was Kids WB's crowning thing.
I keep forgetting about Columbine.
Yes, yeah. And because of Columbine, there were way more concerns about dark violence in kids programming. It was pointed at video games, but definitely still, especially from Tucker's telling of it, there was a lot more concern internally of like, how violent can we make these shows? Oh no, like this is too violent. So on season 2, they said they had to tone down a lot, and they were having way more fights. They had to make many sillier episodes. There's James Tucker has this great story of one of his first episodes he directed was called Egg Baby, which the second he saw the script, like, this is the stupidest idea. He's very open about it, that it sounded like a Saved by the Bell episode where Terry is given an egg to take care of like it's a baby.
I immediately knew what the plot was.
Exactly. And he has to fight like basically a Cruella de Vil type villain, and he's like, this is so silly and over the top, and we've got Andy Dick as a guest voice on it, like this is just so ridiculous. And then he decided, you know what, I'm gonna just turn into this, like I'm gonna be like, yeah, let's make this the stupidest silliest episode of Batman Beyond ever. And Tucker said he got the general sense that by season 2, the executives didn't like Batman Beyond as much. They saw it as too violent, way more expensive than Pokemon, I'd also guess.
Oh, God, yeah.
And they're like, why? This is an expensive, dark show, and it doesn't get as big as ratings of Pokemon. why are we bothering with this? So 2000 was them working on a bigger season 2 production order while also working on the direct-to-video film. And then they get renewed for a final third season of just 13 episodes. And not unlike the last season of Superman, it's full of stealth pilots. Like we talked about it in the Justice League 1, but they do a Justice League 2-part episode that is just them going like, could we do a show with 7 leads in it? How hard is that? And of course, there's also the introduction of the robot with a soul, Zeta, that would lead to the Zeta Project spinoff as well. And also, in the shadow of Terry, there was another teen DC show, the underrated Static Shock.
Oh, right.
And so season 3 also would have a sort of crossover between Batman Beyond and Static Shock as well. So it was more like Batman Beyond was turning into a launching pad for the next bit of ideas. And so they finished the show by 2001. They're already moving out over to Justice League. But Warner starts to hold back like Kids WB sits on like 5 episodes for a while. There's 2 episodes they just sit on forever, and one was supposed to air
Jesus.
in September of 2011, but it is about bombings and terrorists.
Yeah, I forgot the show overlapped both Columbine and 9/11, 2 events that would prepare us for the untold violence of the 21st century.
Yep. And it really was the Batman of the future, you know. And so the actual final episode would air on December 18th of 2001, but on Cartoon Network, where the DCAU had now moved to. Though in 2001, Warner also optioned Batman Beyond for a live-action adaptation. This was during when they didn't know what they wanted a live-action Batman movie to be, because Batman and Robin flopped so hard, they're like, well, what do we do now? And so they basically spent like 7 years before they made Batman Begins and just trying all this other stuff. And Paul Dini and Alan Burnett were even hired to help on the script for it, but didn't come into anything. The show itself never got a real last episode. Like the last episode they made was just a regular episode, and it tied up some plot stuff, but mostly it was just another episode. And they then decided in 2004, with what they thought would be their last Justice League Unlimited episode, to do an episode of Batman Begins, except it's 15 or 20 years after these episodes. And so it's a grown-up Terry, an even older Batman, and a major plot twist that some Batman Beyond fans like, some don't. I don't know if you've heard this, Bob.
Oh, I think I know what the twist is. Should we spoil it, or?
Nah,
okay.
I won't. But some fans like it, some fans didn't. But Bruce Timm was very into it.
Okay.
That was the last we saw of it. If you want to see adult Terry and adult Dana and all that stuff, it's in there in Epilogue. You really should watch it. And so that was basically the end of Batman Beyond, other than that Darwin Cook thing in 2014. Except now there are new rumors, Bob.
Ooh, really?
So in late 2020, you may have heard, well, all through 2020, that they're making that Flash movie, and that Michael Keaton is gonna come back in it and play Batman.
Okay, wow, I've not even heard this.
Oh, you missed this?
Yeah, I missed the news.
Michael Keaton Batman. While the Flash might be going to other timelines, and he might meet Michael Keaton Batman.
Okay,
and so. Now the rumor is, along with rumor, there's also the rumor that HBO Max is just going to make new episodes of Batman the Animated Series to sell HBO Max to us, even though we're already there.
I will stay on board if they're good, only if they're good.
But also the rumor is that spinning out of the Flash movie. Right now, Warner wants to, they're already doing it with their next Suicide Squad film too, is they want to spin out HBO Max TV series out of their films. So the rumor is that out of the Flash film with old Michael Keaton, that he would then play old Bruce in an HBO Max original Batman Beyond series.
Is this live action or?
It would be live action.
Wow,
yes,
interesting.
yes.
I mean, this idea is just sitting there, you know?
Yeah, Keaton's Batman is not Kevin Conroy's Batman.
No.
But him as old Batman, that is star quality there. That's I think it's going to happen. Same with that rumor of new episodes of Batman the Animated Series being produced by Tim and his team and just doing it on HBO Max. Like, I think that's happening.
So many things have come back. I don't see why that won't. I'm not saying if it'll be good or bad, but I mean, with Animaniacs coming back, I feel like we're going to see, and Tiny Toons, right?
Yep, Tiny Toons is now going, yeah.
I think we're going to just see the return of all of these shows, except for Freakazoid.
Yeah,
but he did come back, kind of.
We did come back in Teen Titans.
Yeah.
It's true, yeah. Okay, so meanwhile, the original series did get an HD Blu-ray remaster in 2019. That's the version that's on HBO Max. And it does look really good, except for 11 episodes.
Yeah.
Because they had their original 35 millimeter negatives or masters of 41 of the episodes, but 11, I believe, either time-worn irreparable damage to those negatives. 11 just got smart resed from their Digi-Beta video.
You can see just the dirt and the hair and everything on the cells. It's great. I love seeing this on HBO Max.
I love seeing the dirt. I love seeing the paint. You can see the brush strokes on the backgrounds and stuff. That's a sad thing in Return of the Joker, that it is digital backgrounds in that too. It was the first time Tim had ever used digital backgrounds before, but that's a podcast for another day.
We'll get to it.
But that is the history of the Batman Beyond TV series. Why don't we take a quick break? When we come back, we'll be talking about the third episode in the show, Blackout.
Batman Beyond will return after these messages.
So, Wayne, we're partners now, right?
Yeah. Why do you ask?
And I get access to all this cool stuff, the grappling hook, the utility belt.
What's your point?
Can I borrow the car tonight? I got a date.
Batman Beyond. Next, only on Kids WB.
Being a superhero rocks.
Mind not doing that?
Sorry.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and this podcast will not be preempted by reruns of Pokemon.
Hey everybody, it's Bob Mackey, and I like my women dark and gooey.
And welcome to the break for this week, where we finally cover Batman Beyond, one of the I'd say more overlooked members of the DC animated universe. So much fun to talk about it, and who knows, maybe in the future we'll do the Return of the Joker as one of our extra podcasts. But we're only able to do all of this talk because of listeners like you who support us at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
That's right. If you want to support the show and get all kinds of stuff on top of that, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up at the $5 level. You get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, and also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. Since we started the Patreon in the summer of 2017, you get that stuff all instantly available to you. That includes all of our limited miniseries. And the upcoming one that's coming at the end of the month is Talking of the Hill Season 2 Part 1. That's 11 new episodes of Talking of the Hill, and there will be another miniseries in the fall of 2021 if you hang on until then. And we also have a $10 level. If you sign up for that, you get all the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one mega-long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher.
Yes, you're talking about the What a Cartoon movie podcast. You listeners get to hear a preview of it every month, but you can only hear the full thing that's often over 4 hours long, even as long as 5 hours occasionally, if you are a subscriber at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons for $10 a month. Very soon you're going to hear DuckTales the movie, Treasure of the Lost Lamp. The month before that, we covered the Studio Ghibli classic, Whisper of the Heart. We have a gigantic back catalog. If you liked all of this comic book talk here, boy, would you love to hear our ones about Batman Mask of the Phantasm or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, just to name a few. Or, say, if you like 90s Warner animation, I bet you'd like our one about Tiny Toons, How I Spent My Vacation. Over 2 years, I would bet easily 100 hours of additional podcasts in addition to all of the $5 things Bob mentioned. All yours at the $10 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you've never signed up for Patreon before, it is so easy to do. And once you do sign up, you're given access to a code that you can access at any time you want. You just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And that way you can listen to our bonus podcast alongside of your free podcast as part of your podcasting lifestyle. And there is also an app that Patreon has for any smart device. You can use that to download our bonus podcast that way too. But either way you do it is so easy to access all of the bonus content waiting for you at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So consider all of that while listening to our very schway podcast discussion of Batman Beyond.
Hey, what do you got there, a rabbit?
It's a Pokemon.
A what?
It's a new show that follows ours on Kids WB.
Cute little guy.
Well, looks can be deceiving.
Oh, please. You trying to tell me that this little...
Told you.
No kidding.
Catch an all-new Pokemon this weekend after Batman Beyond on Kids WB.
Batman Beyond now continues.
All right, we are back. And I wanted to do Blackout because, you know, the first two episodes are a two-part origin that kind of stretches it out, and you can't do one or the other, even though they're both great. Like that opening of Batman's final night, and oh man, that guy saying like, "We're the Jokers," and Batman, Bruce replying like, "Sure you are."
I was also very shocked when Batman picked up the gun. I was like, "Oh my god!" So
Yeah.
it was the moment that really worked for me
And
in that first episode.
and the blood coming out of his mouth, and also like you can see that the desperation on Batman's face, that he's like, I failed. They're not afraid of me anymore. I'm gonna get beaten to death, and this is the end of Batman. Yeah, it's just and also like Terry's father gets Uncle Ben, and they make it as clear as they can on TV.
It's a very Spider-Man event. And what is Batman wearing a different costume in the future?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. He was already, the reason his suit is kind of an Iron Man type suit is as he got older, he was using the suit to help him keep up.
Okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, instead, this one has pretty much fully set up the status quo. It's got great animation. It shows off one of their key villains of the entire Beyond series. Plus, you get the introduction of Commissioner Gordon and the Batmobile. Like, there's lots of cool stuff in this. And like I said, I think it is some of the best animation in the entire series, especially like you can see, not that it gets too much worse, but season 1 has more money than season 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can really tell that. So yes, this episode was written by Robert, or Bob, Goodman. He was one of the top writers in the WB years of DCAU, wrote for a million things, and he would follow up Batman Beyond with show running the spinoff, The Zeta Project, for 26 episodes.
I have never heard of that in my life. Never.
Yeah, I despite enjoying Batman Beyond, I actually didn't watch it. Though when I watched it, in clips of it, as a kid, I thought, and by kid, I mean 19-year-old.
That's a kid.
I thought that I could absolutely tell it wasn't made on film, that it was a digital, cheaper show. And when you're a Batman Beyond spinoff that looks worse and cheaper than Batman Beyond, and they really hadn't figured out yet how to make digital in that style look good. It just seemed worse to me, and I was like, it was missing the Bruce Timm touch as well. Like the character designs just felt off to me. Maybe the show's good, Diedrich Bader as a sentient robot. Maybe that's good, but it's that's where Bob Goodman went off to. Like I think it's the only show he showrun. And this episode's directed by Dan Reba, a mega vet of the Batman the Animated Series from the original first season. He was a director on that. Was one of their top directors. He worked on, he got his start in the early 80s and late 80s and shows like the Mr. T show and
boy.
Alf Tales. He worked a little on Alf Tales. He worked more on just Alf, the first season of cartoon Alf. He directed 14 episodes total, 1/4 of the entire Batman Beyond series. And he worked on most other Bruce Timm things before moving over to Cartoon Network with Ben 10 and a lot of the other Murakami guys. He seems to be freelance, but still working to this day. Like he has a director credit on a lot of stuff I've never heard of, and also the Netflix Jurassic World CG cartoon.
I'm also seeing work on the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. IMDb incorrectly said he directed every episode, but I'm sure they just listed every director that they ever hired, and they had one set of credits.
You think that Deke is going to bother with specialized credits for 52 different episodes?
They're lucky they get any credits.
Except for the mastermind of Deke. He makes sure his credits there every time. Andy Hayward, that's the guy. And the overseas animation director on this one was Yukio Suzuki, who also he worked on the 1994 Spider-Man show. So this is his Spider-Man techniques continuing here. He even worked on Castle of Cagliostro. That he was just an in-betweener there, but he is a TMS vet.
Okay.
And so, yes, we get the opening. It warms my heart because I love that awful music video style of Tool and Nine Inch Nails.
I guess it's nostalgic. Yeah. I just didn't like it then at the time, so
I get it.
It stands out to me. But you know what? That's what the skip intro button is for.
And also, that opening was deemed by Fox Kids a little too sexy.
Oh, the dancing ladies,
the dancing girls, Dana looks quite hot in there. And there's another cute girl too. They were really getting away with something, but apparently this is James Tucker telling this funny story that Bruce Timm was like, oh yeah, which was originally in there it was only girls dancing. And
this lesbian bar doesn't have a fire exit.
and so the Kids WB execs were like, all right, come on guys, you can't just have hot girls dancing. Like, all right, let's just draw a guy in there. And they just there's like a dude there who is hardly as objectified. I must complain that he is not half as objectified as the girls dancing.
He's like wearing a parka and snow pants.
But yes, so I like the opening. I think it really sets a tone. And hey, it's not a clip show package like the Superman
That's
opening,
true. And they eventually, it was fine, but they went from the very classy Batman opening. With a new series, they would just do clip shows, basically.
Yeah.
So
it's sad for the DCAU that it's just all downhill from the original, which is like one of the greatest shorts of all time for Batman.
That's how they sold it, right?
Yeah. And also, this is still in the post-Radomski world of the DCAU, so no title cards.
I noted that in my notes. Did Superman have title cards?
No,
I didn't think
was
so.
The same too. I think at the very least, the presentation of a title in this, I do like that it's like opening, and then just text over black, and then the episode starts. Because on Superman, I believe the episode titles were over animation.
Okay, yeah.
And I prefer it just being, simplify it all the way, Surprisingly, according to the wiki, with the way this starts out, this is the only episode that features Fox Tekka or talk of Lucius Fox Jr. Like, there's no other Lucius Fox stuff in it. You'd think there would be.
Okay, I was wondering if he would mention his old buddy Lucius Fox anymore, or that they were establishing this rivalry between companies, but I guess this is it, right?
Yeah, this is the only time, and we never even see Lucius Fox Jr. And Lucius Fox, he was the character Morgan Freeman played in the Nolan trilogy, and one would assume he was always written to be like 10 to 20 years older than Bruce, so you can expect he's dead at this point. But we get to see a long setup of going into the Fox Tech building. You can really appreciate the backgrounds, painted on black. And yes, the buildings are just straight out of Blade Runner. But they're really good looking. That's a great way to design stuff.
And everything is hovering.
Yeah, everything hovers except for the truck that's making the delivery. It is just like a truck with wheel wells. I think it's because the wheel well actually has a plot significance. Like, it's how ink escapes. So maybe that's why they drew this one still has wheels.
Otherwise, it would be hovering.
And I also love it's a gate, but it's like a laser gate that has to lift up and go down.
It is their idea of the future is really undercooked but funny in that way. Just the gate is lasers. Let's move on.
Oh, and the security guards they look totally out of Running Man or something too. I love that. And another reason I really like this episode is that Ink is the perfect kind of villain for a cartoon. She's a great if you were to see this character on the comic page, she'd get cool poses and stuff, but the liquidity of a villain in its movements, you need animation for that.
And CG at this time was not ready for that.
I feel bad for these animators that were told, well, it's like the T-1000, but you draw it. Just every bit of an amorphous living thing.
Draw it slinking upstairs, really easy to do, right?
And it also felt almost like a callback to classic 30s cartoons of the shadow comes alive and hops out and the way it moves around and it's just black and white. It also feels like an old throwback kind of cartoon character. And Ink would go on to be one of the most used villain in the series. She makes more, unless you count, Batman doesn't fight Blight as much as he fights Ink. And also the Cobra in the second and third season, he fights this terrorist group called Cobra, which they existed before G.I. Joe. So
that's fair.
But yeah, he fights these Cobra guys. I guess he fights them more than Ink, but they're just faceless dudes. It's not the same enemy. So I'd say Ink is his most reused villain. If you're to say what Spider-Man character does she rip off, she's pretty much like Sandman and Venom, I'd say. She's them together. I'd say more Sandman.
I got Venom vibe just with all the goo.
Yeah. Or Carnage. Carnage is the one who makes blades with his hands and stuff. But Sandman can flatten out and do all that stuff. So she sneaks in. She starts blowing shit up. Some really great explosions by Coco here. I think this episode you can see has a higher budget than some others. Those are out of Batman the Animated Series original seasons explosions. And the future fire department shows up. I like that it's it hovers, then they shoot water out. And then also the ooze popping around and glooping out of the truck and stuff as it escapes the big explosion. It also reminded me of the villain from Fern Gully.
Oh yeah, the Tim Curry. He enjoyed smoking that bulldozer pipe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's his villain song I remember loving as a kid, but now I can't remember a word of it.
I just recall the Robin Williams rap song.
My name is Betty. I come from the attic.
We could go on long and long about that.
Fern
but
Gully. I bet that one we'll do eventually.
I kind of want to see it again.
Where would it even? Okay. So then we get to the next scene, the first scene with actual dialogue. It's not that I don't have any clips, but fewer clips than usual. This is a lot of silent action in this one.
Feels like the first 2 minutes are just, there's some ancillary dialogue with the guards.
Yeah, which I'm not going to play that of a guard saying hey, stop.
What's over there?
Yeah. Oh no, get everybody out. But this first scene shows us Bruce going up a very dangerous looking elevator that's just guardrail free floor in a tube that then just pops you out.
See, it's an elevator in the future. That's how they work.
I could see a future billionaire going I want to build a very dangerous elevator that is my private elevator.
That's probably how you see Elon Musk. And Rick and Morty episodes are projected on the walls as you go up to watch him.
It would look much worse though.
And it would kill you.
Yeah, but he'd call it the space tube. But yes, Bruce is confronting the new owner of the Wayne Powers Company, Derek Powers.
Come in, Bruce. What a pleasant surprise. How have you been holding up?
With a cane.
Very clever. I must say, it's so nice to see you taking an interest after all these years. We're lucky to have you as a resource.
Mm-hmm.
You should come by more often. I'll set you up with the finest office in the building. Just not this one. I'd prefer you not touch that.
In case you're worried, I didn't come here to set up shop again.
Why, Bruce, you've misread me. I don't worry.
I just came to say this. Keep your hands off Fox Tekka.
Pardon me?
I may not have the leverage on paper anymore, but I still have friends. The Foxes were a valued part of this company for years. I'd hate to find out Wayne Powers was involved in these attacks.
So this Powers guy, it was hinted at in the first 2 episodes, but he basically took over the Wayne Company?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. As Bruce fell back in depression and in loneliness, he just let a corporate raider take over his company, and that's Derek Powers, and he is the Green Goblin of the show. Like he's Norman Osborn, and
his origin story was set up how he turned to supervillainy in the first 2 episodes. He was only doing like corporate supervillainy. Now he has powers.
He's a pale reflection of Dr. Colossus, though.
I like in this the year 2039. It's just a Manila folder on his desk.
That's really great.
with a black and white photo too.
You're right.
Again, this does not need to be in the future.
Yes, yeah. Boy, you're right. That actually isn't very futuristic. And a character like Ink, you don't need future tech in the Batman world to create such a thing. Like, she's no crazier than Livewire, the electric lady from the Superman series. Derek Powers, very much the Green Goblin type of villain, and he is voiced by Sherman Howard, who to horror fans is most famous as Bub, the zombie from Day of the Dead.
Okay, wow.
And as Tim remembers, they had Sherman Howard in actually for Lex Luthor, and he was their pick for Lex Luthor until they met the guy they would cast as Lex Luthor. So they're like, but we always want to work with him again. And so in Batman Beyond, when they make a different evil billionaire guy, they're like, oh, hey, Sherman, let's get him in. And he's really, really good. I do think it's too bad, though, that Blight, I don't know, I couldn't find why this happened, but he is the recurring overall villain of the first season, and then they write him off the show. And
really?
He kind of doesn't return.
Okay.
His son is still active in the show, and he takes over as like the co-owner of Wayne Tech, or Wayne Powers. But yeah, they write him out of it. I'm not sure. Maybe it was one of those things they're like, in a Buffy show, you would have a season-long villain, so maybe they were just like, yeah, he's this season's villain of the Buffy show, and we'll have a new, different villain next season. And then by the time they're working on season 2, they're told, no, you don't make shows like Buffy anymore. That's too dark. No consistent villain for a season.
Yeah, it feels like he is a darker choice.
Oh, yeah. He's like a murderer who's just like kill. He's a guy who says kill all of the time, and so I can see in a post-Columbine world, they're like, we don't want this guy anymore.
And like his skin is falling off, too. There's a lot of body horror involved with him.
And he can give people cancer as well. They have to tell him, like, well, if you don't wear this fake skin, you're incredibly toxic and radioactive. But yeah, I love the interplay between Bruce and him. It's something, too, I love when they would write Bruce versus Lex Luthor scenes, because it's like Bruce, the one good billionaire, versus every other evil billionaire. I love like the way he's like, oh, Bruce, you've misread me. I don't worry. That's a great line. And also I like that he did the thing every corporate dude would do, which is he bought a company and fired all the other guys and hired his guys.
It's true to life.
And there's also something too with how Bruce, like, you know, he touches the thing and then puts a handkerchief to his head, but it's really him hiding the evidence. Like, Bruce is the detective while Terry is the brawn. Like,
he can only do the detective stuff now. That's what he's stuck at home on that computer.
Over time, Terry does learn to be his own detective, but Bruce is he's still got his mind, and he can still be the world's greatest detective. So they head back down. They are, you know, Bruce warns him to leave Fox Tech alone because he knows Powers is doing it. Powers plays dumb. And as they leave, Powers sees a young man he recognizes.
So did you beat it out of him?
Not exactly, but I do have some things to check out.
Okay if I get some time of my own tonight?
Don't count on it.
No more interruptions.
Yes, sir.
That does not make me happy.
Don't worry about Wayne. That performance was just to remind me he's still breathing. And barely, I might add.
He knows too much.
He's just fishing. I'll send him an extra basket of oranges this Christmas and he'll be happy. Moving on. Here's what I'd like you to do tonight, my dear.
So we know the Goop is a woman.
Yes, yeah, sexy lady. I like her. Her humanoid form is a good one. I like that they design her hair to look kind of like liquid as well, but also like it kind of reminds me, honestly, of Sean Young in Blade Runner too.
Okay.
I think
But very bizarre hair in that movie.
I like too the way Bruce thinks it's funny that Terry thinks he can have a personal life. Like he's like, come on,
your life is over.
You belong to me now. There is. It comes up a little later with Dana, but I do think some people would be like, so all right, are you his rent boy? What are you to Bruce Wayne? That's what everybody would think.
She says this isn't normal.
Yes, exactly.
This older man needs me now for mysterious reasons.
I have to spend every night with him. What? So Ink is voiced by the actress Shannon Kenny. She's an Australian actress who honestly doesn't have a lot of credits after the year 2005. Like she had a recurring role on Seventh Heaven and also like didn't do a lot of voice work either. I think it would appear she has retired from acting, which, I can see how she has the money because she's married to a guy who was on Lost, Nestor Carbonell, who was, he was like the mayor in the Nolan movies, he's the guy, I remember a friend of ours, Shane Bettenhausen, said they called him and his friends who watched Lost called him Guy Liner because he just has very thick eyelashes that makes it look like he's wearing eyeliner.
I think, that's a lot of money because Lost was one of the last shows to be big when broadcast TV still mattered. So you can easily live off of that for life.
Yeah. And apparently they are seemingly still together. So, this was like her big acting role in the DCAU. There's a lot of other actors, they get used again and again by Romano, but not Shannon Kenny. Yeah, I like how he powers things like he's just a antsy old man. I'll send him some oranges. I'll shut him up. And he's also just telling him like, yeah, go murder people. Like I want you to kill for me. So we then cut to future football.
Is it like highlight or whatever?
It does seem to be like highlight, but also
racquetball. I don't know. They've got like the scoopy arm things.
Yeah, they have the scoopy arm things of highlight. But it also is kind of like that lacrosse. It's a little lacrosse too, but
they're hovering. Everything is hovering in the future.
It reminds me of the future football scene in Starship Troopers as well.
Okay.
Yeah, this is where they're watching the high school football game. The star player that is Nelson Nash, the Flash Thompson style bully of the show.
We see a little bit of him in the first episode, not enough because I forgot who this character was by the time I hit the third one.
Well, and his face is green.
That
so
too,
it's like
yeah.
He's not in his normal outfit. You can hear only on my third watch was like, oh wait, the audience is chanting Nash, Nash,
Okay.
Nash. So I think too that the character Nelson Nash went through a bit of a post-Columbine transformation as well, because in the first season he is just your classic jock bully, and in season 2 he starts to be nicer to Terry, and I feel like they're like, you know what, we don't need a mean bully in the post-Columbine world. But yes, I think Dana dragged him to this because I don't think Terry would ever be like, yeah, let's watch our high school football team.
The guy I hate.
Yeah, let's watch the guy I hate who hits on you all the time. I'd love to see that. But as they're enjoying their fine night of wholesome teenage entertainment, Terry gets a phone call.
Is it wrong for me to root for the other team?
Not under the circumstances.
I'm glad you came out. I know it's still gotta be tough.
Yeah? But on my way.
Mr. Wayne sure got you on a short leash, doesn't he?
He needs me. Sorry.
It isn't normal.
You have no idea.
Don't say that.
Yeah. She's like, okay, so you are having sex with
You're
him,
fucking
then.
this old man.
Yeah, this old you're his kept boy. You're his new pretty young thing. Well, and then she could just look back and be like, hey, this guy hangs out with a lot of strapping young men over the years. You're just his new toy. I'm sorry for doing the tired old joke of like, what if Batman's gay? Isn't that funny?
But I mean, the people in this world have to be asking questions.
Totally. Maybe in 2050, things are a lot more accepting of that. And they're just like, yeah, you know what? You're gay. Sure. Go ahead, Terry.
This age gap is troubling, but
yes,
you do you.
Yeah, I guess let's assume Terry is 18. Let's also assume that. I mean, he's a very mature looking lad for sure. I also when Terry says to her he needs me, I love how Dana turns away. She's like, I need you too. I kind of like you. But yeah, this also is the real Peter Parker thing. Like, Peter Parker has to cancel dates all the time because Dr. Octopus is stealing something or whatever. And I missed it until just now, the way she says, like, she's kind of comforting him too, because they are respecting, like, your dad did die like a month ago, maybe. So maybe that's why she's cutting him some slack on his new weird job with the old rich guy. So he gets called into action, and Terry heads out to the next Fox Tech building to look in on it. And he's having a little chat with Bruce about this whole secret identity thing.
Wayne, you there?
Go ahead.
Is there any time of day I get to have a social life?
Not in this business.
You get a real kick out of this, don't you? Maybe it should be you up here instead of me.
I'm doing my part.
Which is what again?
I did some digging after I saw a report on Power's desk. It seems that he and Fox Tekka are up for the same job. The government wants a new lunar station, and only one of them gets to build it.
So Powers is crippling the competition with sabotage.
And until we can stop him, you're Fox Tekka's guardian angel. Now tell me what you see.
Looks like someone's celebrating July 4th inside their office. I'm going in.
That also feels like a very Spider-Man line. They're celebrating July 4th inside their office.
He's very quippy, this Terry.
Hey, that's his secret power, as we learn in the movie. There's some great animation of ink sneaking in there too, like the way she like drops out of the vent and then gloops up, and the way the ooze goes under the keyboard, like that's so cool.
Whenever the ooze like goes through like cracks and things, it looks really neat.
Yeah. And it's also when I see Terry jumping around in the suit, it's the action poses are when I really appreciate, like, this pitch black body with the gray outline. Like, it's such just a cool design. Like, it's a danger of when you have just a full black suit that you can't see any definition on them, but like especially on his head, the lines of distinction from the gray to black looks really cool.
And there's not even a cape on him, right?
Nope.
It's such a simple design.
Yeah, yes. That's, again, very money saving too, I think. Yeah,
capes are hard to draw. They're flapping around constantly. Instead of the cape, he has just the arm flaps, right?
Yeah, he has arm flaps that can come out if he needs them, not unlike Spider-Man's web pits. And he has rocket boots too. All these things that Batman didn't have before. So now he can just fly. You also don't have to worry as much about drawing physics right of a guy swinging on a grapple rope. Like, very few grapple rope shots in this compared.
And the suit helps him fly things too, and like pilot vehicles.
Yeah, kind of like talks through it. It's a cyber suit. That's something too I really like, that the suit he's wearing is the same one Bruce wears in 2019 when he retires. So it's really cool that they show that Bruce was way ahead on tech in 2019, but now in this future, everybody's caught up to his Batman tech, so it's not as fancy as it used to be. And as he starts to investigate, the thing Bruce is looking at under the microscope starts going crazy, and so he's trying to warn him. I feel like every episode at least has like 3 McGinnis from Conroy. And another great shot, man, the way the ink starts to fill up the screen and surround Terry.
Like loom over him, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great shot. Yeah. And also another thing that struck me in this was when she busts out and starts smashing him into computers, I'm like, broken glass everywhere. Like,
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just being like dragged across the monitor screens. Yeah, one thing I noticed in the first episode, to go back to that, is a criminal pointing a gun at the screen, at the camera, and I was like, "Holy, how did they do this? That's a big no-no."
Yeah, you're right. And then Batman points it too, and you get like a picture of Batman pointing a gun. Yeah, you're right. These are all I think that's the stuff you get away with early in the series when they're like, hey, we just need this episode out now.
We gave you no time.
And I also think Tim and his team knew we can just say, hey, there's no time, so let's get away with some stuff. Like, yeah, they knew. There's a really great moment on one of the Batman, the regular show commentaries, where a guy says, oh yeah, it's Tim and another guy, and the other guy says like, oh yeah, we would front load episodes with things we knew the censors would cut out, so the other stuff later wouldn't look as bad. And Bruce is like, shh, no, we didn't. We didn't do that. But after he gets beaten up by a pile of black ooze, I love this little thing that Terry says.
What the heck was that?
All right, that music does sound very corny by itself, sure.
But yeah, it's not even like she's not even there to fight him. She's just there to do her job and leave. Yeah. So she gets away.
And she did. She destroys. The Fox Tekka should be crippled after this. Like, I know he stops her, but it's like, I think she blows up 4 buildings of Fox Tekka.
I think they lost the contract.
Yeah.
By the time all this is over.
How much money could that company have left at that point? But yeah, it's just a great act break line of like, what the heck was that? So it cuts back next scene with them chatting in the Bat Cave. I also, again, very Spider-Man. The way Terry looks without his mask, like that looks like Peter when he takes his mask off walking around. And it is very different from Batman, from how Bruce was Batman, because he always, like, if he's sitting in the back computer, he'd sometimes have the mask off, but mostly have the mask on while doing
it. Was
work.
Always a little silly to see Batman sitting at a computer.
Yeah, that's true.
Just with his cowl on.
But he's always Batman, so he's gotta work through his mask. And so yes, Terry doesn't know what he could have done better, and Bruce has some suggestions.
What did you send me into? It was like some kind of blob. You should have warned me.
I tried. You have to learn to think on your feet.
Look, you may be used to dealing with freaks and monsters, but I'm a little new at this. I don't even know what half this stuff is.
Way before your time. Here, her name's Ink. She's a corporate saboteur. Interpol's been after her for years. It looks like Powers is her new employer.
What is she?
The results of a mutagenic experiment. The details aren't known.
So how do you stop her?
That's where thinking on your feet comes in.
And that's his lesson for this episode. He's going to have to learn to think on his feet. After we just did Ego Trip, it's funny to watch him do the walk by test tubes and be distorted animation.
That's a fun shot in anything animated. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a fun little show off. And also, speaking of showing stuff off, this sequence is also about setting up all of the stuff that's in the Batcave that's going to be important in the fight later. And that's another reason I really like this episode, that, they don't have old villains come back too much in the series, but this is like, here's all the Bat nostalgia for the original show.
Yeah,
and he's walking by them all.
He's living among all these Easter eggs of all these discarded villain costumes. The actual, was the dummy called Scarface?
Yeah, Scarface.
Yeah, the actual dummy from the redesigned dummy from the last series. Yeah. He's in the cave too.
Yeah, you in the first episodes you do see the cave some, and you definitely see the old costumes of the Bat family. But this time you get to see all the villain stuff there too, including he walks by Chekhov's freeze gun.
Oh,
as
right.
Well.
He should have deactivated that thing before putting it in the trophy case.
Yeah, I guess Bruce is like, you never know when you need it, but you're right. It shouldn't be able to just be picked up and shoot out. Like he has a loaded gun there. Really. And I also like that they say that Ink is like, they just are vague of like a mutagenic experiment gone wrong. People don't really know. Like, oh, okay. That lets them, one, not have to put extra effort into designing a background for the character, and two, they can save it for an origin episode later, which they do indeed use.
And you don't need to explain the water thing, because if you don't know how she was made, you don't need to explain water.
That's true. Yeah, it's just like, well, yeah, she's gloop, and she'd be watered down if she landed in water. And so then Batman gets gifted his own Batmobile, which sometimes he needs if he needs to go a little faster. Other times he does just patrol in Batsuit alone. I think they honestly, the Batmobile is just here like for showing off a toy.
Is this flying thing just called the Batmobile?
I think if you were to, I think it is called the Batmobile.
I was going to ask, like, what is the toy called? What is the toy called?
I should, maybe look up the toy on that. But yes, if you didn't think that it looked cool, Terry is here to tell you how cool this Batmobile is.
This is unbearably cool.
Remember, easy gestures. Let the suit do the work.
Mind not doing that?
Sorry.
You scratch it, no allowance.
That's a little too cute, that you scratch it, no allowance thing.
He's getting too much into being a dad, but I think it's called the Street to Sky Batmobile because it has two functions.
Oh boy, I like that. And so kids love toys that have two that can transform even to a small degree.
And the toy fires 6 discs.
Wow, 6 whole discs.
But it is funny in keeping with how just everything is hovering in the series. Like, what if the Batmobile hovered?
Yeah,
pretty cool, huh?
Pretty nice. And then also less physics to worry about there too.
And we see hover forklifts very soon, so those are hovering too. Everything's a hovering.
I guess it's a drone forklift as well.
Yeah,
but those shots of Terry inside the ship, I feel like were reused even more than other shots for like the kids WB. All of them talking to each other scenes.
I've got Pokemon on my radar.
Stay away, Terry.
Yeah. There's no lip sync. You're right. They could easily just slot that in.
I swear they used it 1,000,000 times, and they actually reused it so much that it actually appeared in a COVID-related warning video that the Batman themselves made last year.
Wow.
I don't know. Here, I've got a clip.
Okay,
here.
I want to hear this.
So this is classic BTAS Batman talking to Brave and the Bold Diedrich Bader Batman and the Troy Baker voiced Lego Batman. It's not Will Arnett Lego Batman. It's the other Lego Batman. They're all talking to each other about the need to wear masks.
None of you are wearing the right kind of mask.
Future Batman.
I'm wearing a mask. Your masks are like you cut the most important parts of the mask off on purpose.
We get it.
They couldn't be more useless, pandemic-wise.
Thank you.
I should know.
Because you're from the future. Yes, we understand.
Do you? And another thing.
Gee, do you think his connection got cut off? Or do you think our actions erased his timeline?
We can only hope.
Wow, I totally missed that.
Yeah, well, you were watching the DC Fandome, Bob.
Oh, I missed the Fandome.
Yeah, the Fandome was where they revealed all the new trailers for all your favorite DC products, Bob.
Going back to those Kids WB promos, people have been putting them on Twitter lately, and they're very creative. I watched one recently where it was the gang from Pokemon capturing Pinky in the Brain.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, it doesn't look great, but they are very creative with just how they're able to snip out pieces of animation and reuse it in the context of a commercial.
And it's always fun to hear like Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulson being game for like to just say Pikachu. Yeah. Or I saw one shared of it was the Batman Rogues playing cards, except they're using Pokemon cards as well. Or the one of Superman saving InSync, or no, the Backstreet Boys from the Animaniacs.
Oh, right. They had a brief I think they hosted a morning on one of the Kids WB mornings.
And they really, I think it was just Joey Fatone and JC.
The cheapest ones.
Yeah, the cheapest ones. Let's just say that. Yeah, I bet you'll hear a couple of those in the break for this episode, dear listener. But yeah, it feels like it was made for ads the way he says, this is unbearably cool. It's like, if you talk up too much about how cool your show is, it's a little try hard.
Now, this is pod racing.
So I have no clips for the next 5 minutes of the show.
It's all action.
Yeah, except there's a quip here or there, but it's mostly all action. Yeah.
And whenever it's just action, I take the most notes because I put down every beat of the action. So yeah, there's a lot of notes for this, but a lot happens in this next attack on another Fox Tekka plant.
Yeah, the first move, like, it's so cool the way Ink gets under a girder and pops it out. Like, you can feel the pressure of the liquid, like, shooting out. And her powers as a liquid are just so cool. And she makes a girder fall over onto a boat. They show the guy jumping out of the way, but the boat then instantly explodes. So I'm like, no, that guy's dead. Like,
Are there people in the boat?
There have to be, right? I think that definitely is the kind of vagueness that Tim, if you ask Bruce Timm, he's like, oh yeah, I made a scene where they killed like 30 people, but you don't tell the network censors that.
And they do a good job of showing just how useless Terry is against her, because he drops on her and she sort of like goops away, and then his batarangs don't work. It's just showing that everything he's trying to do just doesn't work against her.
Yeah, I really love the action shot of him. The way he could go out from the top, but then he can shoot out the bottom of the Batmobile. Like, that's so cool. There's also great shots of like the Batmobile turning, that they show that it kind of like hovers. It's not like a regular jet that has to like turn in air by going super fast, and then instead it can just like stop on a dime and then hover over in another direction. And it's an amazing explosion, but I always laugh whenever any Batman shoots a missile out of something. I'm like, okay, that's not a gun.
Yeah.
Like, hey, no to guns. But of course I have giant explosive missiles.
Hey, a missile didn't kill Batman's parents.
And the way the forklift explodes, again, great explosion. But yeah, he just splats on Ink, and also just great animation. Not only how he splats, but he also kind of like slides on the ground. It's so good.
In case you've never looked up Batman Beyond, Ink is very cleverly spelled INQUE.
Oh yes, yeah, that's very 1999 that she's spelled in such a cool way. If they could have fit a Z in there, it'd be even cooler. But
alternating caps.
And in such a cool just like exchange, like it's really hard hitting what Terry's going through. Like, he's getting smashed by, like, she makes basically like hand daggers and just like blasts him in the face.
He gets the crap beat out of him.
His manhole cover just gets well, that sounds right. His manhole gets blasted.
No, it gets like shot back at him. I mean, she like picks him up and smashes him into so many things in this. I hope the suit is absorbing most of this damage.
I think it's implied it can do that. Yeah. Also there's I love her line to him, like, you're not a fast learner, are you? Like every time he's trying to do stuff, she's like, I'm liquid, you idiot. Quit throwing batarangs at me. Though then Terry does show he's a fast learner, because as their fight continues, she avoids landing in pools of water, and he's like, you don't like water, do you? So, see, Terry's not an entirely stupid person. And then, oh man, I think the best animation in the entire episode is when he's like taunting her, and she then goes below the tiles and just explodes out of him.
It's like chasing him underground through the tiles. Really cool animation.
Yeah, so cool looking. And yes, Terry barely gets away and just splashes in water like a 2-time loser against Ink. He's not doing so great as Batman in this episode. But yeah, I like she does get away before she's done a ton of damage, though. And this is when she takes the bad news to Power in his flying limousine, a future limousine.
Unfortunately, last night's damage was minimal. They're still meeting their schedule.
Splendid.
We need to talk.
This better be good. What happened?
Someone's been interfering. This is the second time.
Who?
I don't know. He wore a costume. Black and red.
Batman.
The Batman?
What difference does it make?
What's happening to you?
I have a condition. I trust you'll be discreet. I'm putting you on a new assignment. Find this Batman and kill him.
He has an accomplice. I heard him speak with someone over a radio link.
Then do them both. I'll pay you whatever you want.
No wonder I like working for you.
Now I suggest you leave. It's not healthy to be around me when I'm shedding.
Was it the last episode that we see him in the Play-Doh Fun Factory? All the men in radiation suits are around him, and he's being just like pressed into this machine, presumably to give him skin.
Yeah, it puts skin on him every time. Like they do that. Yeah, it's in this episode too. Yeah,
okay, I forget. I thought it was in the last one. But,
I think it's in both.
Okay.
In this one, it's used as an excuse for why he can't be on the phone with her when she's in the
yeah,
Batcave.
He hands like the melted foam back to the people.
Yeah, he's just too radioactive. But when I saw the woman on the video telling Powers that too, it reminded me of something. This show invented VTubers, Bob.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, the holographic news team, right?
Yeah, the holographic news team. They are not. They aren't people. They aren't AI. They are people talking through a hologram that represents a person. Thus, a VTuber.
I can't believe it took us to this long to get to VTubers in our timeline. I think COVID screwed us up.
I think I'm up for this VTube, and when it gets a little easier, maybe in 10 years when we've run out of Simpsons episodes, we both can become VTubers.
It's easier to cancel VTubers. You just delete them.
Yeah, you delete them, and then you can just come back as a new character. Like, no, I'm a different furry man.
I'm a different anime child.
But yeah, I like how Ink is just I'm in it for the money. Just keep giving me money. I'll kill anybody. I don't care. And I also love her exit is so dramatic. Like gloops out of it, hits a chimney, basically a future chimney, and then reconstitutes herself.
It's hovering off of the building, making it useless.
And it only like runs on Energon instead. I like Blight just being like, he's a dick. Like he's like, I need more money, kill these people. That's all. I think by the second season too, they don't need a guy to hire villains to fight Batman. That's really his main job. Like a lot of the guys Batman faces in the first season are hired by him to fight Batman.
One thing I don't know if the series addresses later is the outside world shocked that Batman has returned after 20 years?
They do talk about it a little. Yeah, they're like, we have a Batman again. Like he's reported on as the new Batman, but the media sometimes they deal with it, sometimes they don't.
Okay.
Especially as Commissioner, the next episode or one after it, where Commissioner Gordon really does stuff with him, I think they talk more about the legend of Batman.
Because presumably, if you look at his cave, Batman has killed and skinned all of the villains.
and I guess they've all been dead for like 40 years, and people just kind of forgot, like, yeah, remember when we had like crazy villains here?
Oh, yeah. Is there Arkham in this world? Did they ever look into Arkham?
Boy, I don't think there is an Arkham.
Weird.
Oh, no.
Okay.
The Return of the Joker addresses that. Arkham gets shut down. Yes, yeah. So yes, we go to commercial. We come back. A third Fox Tekka building is blown up.
Well, now this is just their fault.
Yeah, also they should be able to figure out like, why do we keep getting all these factories blown up? The ones that help us in building that moon base thing. And I also really love the shots of like when Terry arrives, you can see from Ink's perspective. Like, I like that.
As she's like darting from shadow to shadow.
That also feels like very old cartoony to me too. The way she's hiding in like the black lipstick of a billboard. That's really cool. And so yes, she gets aboard. She's going to get aboard the Batmobile, follow him home. I think it's funny in the design. She can't just talk to him. She has to, part of her goop has to become like a mic, like a wireless mic that she's talking into. It's an interesting choice.
It becomes a headset, yeah.
And Blight is going under for treatment. So that explains why she can't just tell him like, hey, I'm in the Batcave right now. And this guy sounds like that guy you were yelling at in the office. Seemingly, she does not figure out who Bruce Wayne is in this whole thing.
I was wondering, does she realize where she is at the end here?
Well, she knows she's in the Batcave, but she doesn't know where it is. They do address it in her next return. They're like, no, she doesn't know who we are.
And Bruce Wayne disguised the top of his head, which is all you need.
It's all you need. It's a different old man in a cane who shouts at a guy. But yes, they bring in the Batmobile. It flies in, and I also really like Bruce's stage lighting all throughout the Batcave that lights up when he arrives. That's when Bruce realizes the ship's a little heavy, and I think it's really lucky for Bruce and Terry that she decides to instantly attack then instead of hiding and learning their secrets.
And waiting till like he's asleep or something.
Yeah, I guess when Bruce realizes it's heavier, she's like, the cover's been blown. Fuck it. Let's go for it.
She wants her paycheck.
Yeah, you know what? She's going to wait around for days here? She needs that money now. And so she attacks, starts smashing Terry around again, basically like bamming him, just like back and forth. And then comes a very gross moment that you highlighted on Twitter.
I just screen capped it with just the words Batman Beyond of him of her forcing herself into his mouth.
Yes,
it's shocking. It's shocking.
Here's I have the quick clip of it here.
Open wide.
It's extremely fucked up because he goes limp.
Yes, yeah, he passes out. It's I can't believe they got away with it. Like, one, the way she says open wide, like, and pours herself into, it's also like her head is what goes in. Like, there's a white bulb as part of her, so it's not just like her arm gloops in. It's really cool how she lifts him up in the air and then travels up her own arm to put the head up there, and then that's what's poured into his mouth.
And he later throws her up.
Yes, yeah. And the way his mouth is fully open, he is gagging on it, and parts of her are dripping out of his mouth. I'm like, all right, okay, guys.
I was shocked to see this. I guess it is episode 3. They would cut down on this later.
Yeah,
like, what did you do?
This is what Columbine took away from us. Women pouring themselves into a man's mouth.
America's worse for it.
The animation on it is very well done, though, as is when Bruce saves the day and like blasts her with a bunch of water and ending this kinky suffocation scene.
When Bruce showed up with the gray ghost costume, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
I was just like, is this Bruce's evening wear? But then I realized, like, oh no, he's disguising himself. Duh.
Yeah, and it was set up being very close to him there, and that's such a great moment too, because the Gray Ghost episode is such a classic of the original, and here now Bruce is probably older than the Adam West voice character was when he met him in that episode. And I also couldn't believe that after he saves them, like, Terry is throwing up ink juice.
Yeah, I think the only way they got away with it is because you hear the throwing up noises and you see the black goop fall from the top of the screen, but you don't see it actually come out of his mouth.
That's true.
That's how they can get away with it.
If the actual movement of vomit from a mouth is that happened far less in 90s cartoons.
Yeah, I mean, we just did Ego Trip where the adult Dexter keeps puking, but he pukes. He sticks his head into something and pukes.
Yeah. Turns his head behind something, but yeah. And so Terry's like, "What kept you?" "A sudden case of shyness." I like that line too. And then we get to see ink glooping all around the old costume cases. Like, that's so cool.
She's breaking all that stuff.
All these collectibles. Yeah. And she almost gets upstairs.
She's heading upstairs.
Pays to be prepared.
Someone's got a secret.
She's getting through. Man, you are prepared.
She won't get through that way either. There's a layer of solid steel.
I think she has something else in mind.
I'd say it's easy to be prepared when you're like have unlimited money.
Yeah.
But Batman is, I mean, of course he would want to have a watertight, airtight door out of the Batcave that could be electrified. I mean, I would think those protocols would work the same on Clayface as they do on Ink. So she is kind of Clayface. She can't pretend to be other people, but power set's similar to Clayface.
Like 50 years ago or 40 years ago, he made sure that layer was Clayface proofed.
Yeah.
So it still works.
I bet that You know, I bet they would have had more objections if it was Clayface pouring himself into someone's mouth.
Yeah.
Maybe
if
woman.
It's a man, yeah.
It's different. It also probably wouldn't turn on Bruce Timm.
No.
But yeah, so she's trying to knock a bunch of stalactites on them or stalagmites. Whatever. One of those.
Tights are the ones that hold tight to the ceiling.
Oh, okay. In my head, I was like, wait, is it stalagmites might fall on you from the ceiling? But no,
That's a bad mnemonic device. There we go.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yours is much better.
Just ask Johnny Mnemonic. He'll tell you.
And so she's now blowing up stuff, and it's cool. Terry saves Bruce's payback. Like, that makes this the Terry show, too, because for a second I was like, oh yeah, Bruce just saves him. Then I guess Bruce is the main character and Terry's like this fuck up that has to be saved by an old man. So it's nice that Terry saves him back and ultimately saves himself. Like, Bruce gets knocked out, and the way he almost falls over like Family Guy prone with his arm behind his back. And it's so cool. Like, the giant penny even is used for plot purposes. I really like that. And so he gets smashed under the giant penny. Bruce is knocked out. She's walking over to him, and Terry knows his science because copper is a very good conductor of electricity. And so he just touches his batarang to it. Instead of throwing it at her, he thinks on his feet.
Is that a batarang or just like a bat taser?
No, it's an electrified batarang,
okay.
But by holding it in his hands, he just electrifies it there and it zaps it on the giant penny, which does fuck her up. And I think it's a tough line to walk, that they have to both show you the gun so it's not a full just like ass pull of like, oh, he has a gun. But if they show it to you too much, it's right in your face and you're like, well, yeah, when's he going to pick up that gun and shoot her?
Instead of you saying, oh, Mr. Freeze's gun, neat. But if they show it too much, you're like, well, yeah, of course, he's going to pick up the gun.
I think one of the best ways they do it to hide it is that it is clearly there in front of him, but they draw it into the background in a couple shots instead of as a cell element. So it kind of falls. You're paying attention to it at least a little less. But I would bet 17-year-old me probably was like, all right, when's he picking up the gun? I see it.
I know better.
But it is a really cool shot of her running towards him finally getting out from under the penny, and then picking up the gun and just zappo. That's so cool. And it's also funny because, like, he picks up a gun and he doesn't seem to really mind, but Bruce is like, well, at least it's an ice gun. And if that had a bullet in it, I'd fire you.
Ice guns are fine.
And after they freeze her and she screams a bunch, and if you didn't know better, you'd think she was dead.
I thought that they just killed her because I until I read later on taking notes later, I was like, oh, she comes back. But at this point, and then I think when I saw the end, I'm like, they didn't just drop off the corpse at Barbara Gordon's. There's a living thing in there.
You can see her ooze move in the ice in the last shot of her, but in this moment she seemingly is dead. But I like this little pronouncement he makes to Bruce after.
That's it. You're showing me everything.
And then Bruce is like, yeah, all right, he's into this. But he's into being Batman. Now it's hard to not make this a sexual connotation. But yeah, he's like, finally, Terry's interested in my old collectibles. Now I can show them all to him.
All this Batman memorabilia.
And so then we get our final scene. In the first time we see the Gotham PD precinct, we get to see the leader of the Jokers walk by there. That guy is voiced by Bruce Timm, by the way. He doesn't talk here, but in the first episode, yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, Bruce Timm thought the unnamed actor they had originally in there just didn't do it right. And they're like, Bruce, you just do it.
Was he the guy that goes into the subway car? Is that him? Okay.
Yeah. And he's the one who says, like, we're the Jokers. And so then we get a really cool shot of, like, you see a door that says Commissioner Gordon, and for just a second as a viewer you're supposed to think, like, is that old guy still alive? But no, certainly not. He'd be like 120 in this time.
It's none other than 35-year-old high school student Stockard Channing.
Yes, I love Stockard Channing. She's great.
She wouldn't do The Simpsons.
I know.
A few years earlier.
Well, she barely did this show.
I saw she left, yeah.
It's not her in the movie, in the Return of the Joker movie. It's Rizzoli or Isles, one of those two. But yes, Barbara Gordon, played by Stockard Channing. She's a great actress, a great singer, should do more animation work, but I guess she's just not into it. But she does play an aging Barbara Gordon very well here.
Gordon, I figured I'd hear from you. Word is you've wrangled a new errand boy.
I never wrangled anyone. Every one of you came to me.
Maybe once you should talk someone out of it.
Would it have worked with you?
I don't suppose you want to meet him.
You know I can't.
Because he's leaving you a get acquainted gift right now. I'd keep it on ice.
See, I don't mind those guitars.
Yeah,
they make sense to me.
Man, now when you look at it from a certain angle, Bruce saying like, "Hey, you all came to me. I didn't make you be my wards."
He was absolving himself of all responsibility in that little statement. Like, I didn't do anything. You signed up for this.
Also, a little bit of the interactions of Bruce and Barbara on this show is Bruce Timm engaging with the romance angle between the two, and like there's clearly a romantic history between them. I feel I can tell that Andrea is directing them of like, you guys are exes as well, but friendly exes, and I don't like it. Batgirl should not date Batman. I do not like that.
It's weird.
Even if she's written to be like, she's 22, he's 35, it's all legal, I'm still like, I just don't like it. I don't. But yeah, I do really like how she's played as, hey, I'm a cop now. I don't do this dress up in costumes anymore. And there's a little implied that you never really know what happens to the Robins until the movie.
Yeah, that's right.
So it is implied that she's like, hey, you fucked up some other young guys, and I barely am okay. Maybe you shouldn't recruit a new young guy.
And in case you didn't get it, there's a picture of Commissioner Gordon in her office.
Yeah. That's as much as they can say of like, yeah, Jim Gordon died a long time ago. And also, she's trying to make new rules. She's trying to establish boundaries of like, hey, I'm not going to be Jim Gordon for your new kid, okay? And he's like, well, I already dropped off a supervillain for you. And she's like, God damn it, you're already crossing the boundaries here, Bruce. But yeah, that also sets up a really interesting character dynamic for Barbara Gordon throughout the rest of the series too. So yes, that's the end of the Blackout episode. I think a really fun, just like Terry adventure that also has a bunch of callbacks to classic Batman episodes too, with a really cool new villain that they could really pull off well in animation.
I did like it. I wish I gave it more of a chance back in 1999, and I think I will just watch the first season, and seemingly is the best season.
Yeah.
I think I'll stop at Egg Baby, but who knows? But
I'd pull up Egg Baby. I think you'd enjoy it.
But yeah, we will eventually do the movie, and I really like the movie, not knowing anything about this series. So
I think you'll like the movie even more as you watch more of the episodes. Plus, in the HD remaster for all but 11 episodes, it looks really great. And I watched one of those ones that I think is not from the up-res set. It still looks,
it looks fine.
Yeah. It looks fine. I mean, definitely some traditionalists will hate looking at it, but it's really, and it's all on HBO Max. And plus I have the Blu-ray set too. They made some really good originals for it. And the Blu-ray set has the complete series and the movies. So you get it all.
And the movie. Nice.
Yep. Yeah. It's totally worth it. Just don't get the one that comes with a Funko Pop. I was cursed. I bought it in the first run and I was cursed with a Funko Pop, but now you don't need to.
I'm glad they got rid of that pop. Do not want that in my house.
The extras are great, but if you just want to watch the HD remaster of it alone and you have HBO Max, you can watch it on there too.
You know, Warner Brothers loves those pops. There's a really cool Bugs Bunny set, but it comes with a Funko Pop.
Right. God, they must have. They've clearly made some deal with the Funko Pop people, and I mean, if I get it, if you're the type of person who will buy physical media instead of watching it on a streaming service, you might be a Funko collector who will buy it.
Not to get too far into this, those things don't come with boxes though, right?
No, they're just a loose Funko.
The entire point was having the box. Like all the Funko Pop collectors I see, the things just are in the boxes, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, which is even worse to me, honestly.
I don't know. I have problems with that whole entire collectible industry, but that's another podcast entirely.
If you're a long-time listener, you've heard me and Bob talk endlessly about how we feel about Funko.
Maybe you can make a super edit for us of all our Funko chat.
But yes, a lot of fun, and I look forward to Return of the Joker someday.
Me too. Yeah, so thanks for listening, everybody. If you want to support the show and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there, you'll get just that, and also access to all of our limited miniseries. The most recent one was Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 2, and coming very, very soon at the end of March is Talking of the Hill Season 2 Part 1. A bunch of new episodes of Talking of the Hill, only for patrons at $5 or higher, and we have so many other things happening behind the Patreon. You get access to everything we've done for nearly 4 years on the Patreon. If you sign up, you get immediate access to all of that stuff. And if you sign up for $10 a month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you get all the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one mega-long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher.
Yeah, he's talking about the What a Cartoon movie, which we discussed so much in this. It is our $10 a month premium podcast. Each month, we do a new one over 4 hours most of the time. We talk about an animated feature film in great detail. Last month, if you were to sign up for it, you got to hear our one about the underrated Ghibli classic, Whisper of the Heart. Before that, Dexter's Lab Ego Trip, End of Evangelion. If you liked all this Batman talk, I know you'd love our one about Batman Mask of the Phantasm, or all the Spider-Man talk. We did Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and you know in the future we'll probably do Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. So keep an eye out for all of that. Get the entire back catalog for $10 a month, plus all of the $5 stuff. A great deal, if you ask me, at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast is Retronauts. That's a classic gaming podcast all about old video games. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 bonus episodes every month. Henry, what about you?
I am HENREYG on Twitter. Follow me there for all of my updates. I am surely talking about my favorite Batman Beyond moments right now. And if you're following folks on Twitter, the official Twitter account of this podcast and sister podcast, Talking Simpsons, that's at Talk Simpsons Pod. At Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter. We'll keep you up to date whenever new episodes of What a Cartoon go live, whenever our episodes on the Patreon go live, whenever there's movies, whenever there's polls, or any other news. You will stay up to date if you are following on Twitter at Talk Simpsons Pod.
Thank you so much for listening, folks. We'll see you next time with Death Note Episode 1 Rebirth, which has the exact same title as the first episode of Batman Beyond. And we will see you then.
Let me put your concerns to rest. I'd never do such a thing. Why, Lucius Jr. was still vice president when I took over.
I know. You fired him.
Yes, well, had to make room for the new guard, didn't we?
Shopify helps you sell at every stage of your business. Like that, let's put it online and see what happens stage.
And the site is live.
That we opened a store and need a fast checkout stage.
Thanks. You're all set.
That count it up and ship it around the globe stage.
This one's going to Thailand.
And that, wait, did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Whatever your stage, businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 a month trial at shopify.com/listen.